Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Empowered Hour. I am super excited today. I have my friend Janina. And how are you doing over there?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm awesome.
Yeah.
So, Janina, can you give a little intro about you, your work, your podcast,
Yes.
uh, and share about what that's all about?
Awesome. Yeah. So I have a podcast named Calming Confectionery, and it was born of the pandemic. um, I have a business and I was working it really, really hard, especially when the pandemic first started. And my husband looked at me one day and said, "You know what? You've got to figure out something to do that's different from making money so that you can stop burning yourself out with running your business." And so that is why it's called Calming Confectionery, because I loved to bake. And so baking was what I started pouring myself into. It was just a way to express myself creatively that had nothing to do with money. And then I realized, well, I can share that with other women because I know that I'm not the only woman that is struggling right now, especially the fact that I was connected with so many others, seeing how they were running their businesses during that time. And so right now it's changed a little bit, the podcast theme, if you will, to helping type A women and encouraging them to really hone in on not having negative self talk, not um, trying to be a perfectionist because that's not attainable. Really honing into what they are able to do and able to do well, and not focusing on the things that they can't
Yeah, a lot of what you're saying resonates with me. I think all of us have been through this, our own journey when it comes to the negative self-talk and the put downs and different stuff like that, and having anxiety. And it sounds like this is your passion, right?
Yeah, I love doing this. I love encouraging other women to take a step back and realize that they are all creative, whether you identify as a creative person or not. But you can do something that can help you to take your mind off of what you may not be able to do at the moment, but to focus on the things that
Yeah. So when it comes to your personal empowerment story, share a little bit about that. How did you come about to understand, yes, I'm being very negative on myself. I need to change. And then suddenly, wow, I'm doing this pretty good. I think I need to help other people.
Yeah, well, I had help, I will have to say. I had help. I have a wonderful husband that saw those things happening. I knew that I was a perfectionist growing up. I mean, I have a story that I tell on one of my episodes of the podcast that when I was 4 years old, my older sister told me that I wasn't perfect, and I didn't believe her, and I started crying. like I guess we were getting ready for school or whatever one day, and we were in the bathroom, and she very bluntly just told me that I wasn't perfect. And so I run out the bathroom crying to my parents, like, "You just said I wasn't perfect." And so, then they have to sit me down and explain, why we're not perfect and what that means, and all of that. But, that never really changed the way that, not fully, how I lived my life. I mean, when I went to school, I was number two in my class when I graduated from high school. I always really tried my best to be the best. Even in my relationships, my friendships, I always wanted to. I try to think ahead so as not to offend anybody, more than a lot of people do, instead of being who I authentically am. And so when I married my husband, he's very like so chill, like just let's do and everybody will be okay. But as long as you're happy, everything's good. So especially when that situation happened at the very beginning of the pandemic, we were only married 2 years. And So he was like, you know, it's time for you to step back and do what you want to do. And so I started doing what I wanted to do. I started spending a little bit more time. And I am an introvert. And but when I got married, I still was like, I need to be with my husband, but he encouraged me to do things on my own and have a space. And now, you know, we had just moved. And so now I have this whole area that's just for me. And, you know, so, and when we go to places to do things for myself rather than always thinking about the other person, oh, you always do. He's my husband. I love him and I want to do things for him, but to also realize that I am still me.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to tell other women and let them know that they do have things to do in their households. You know, if they have a mate, a life partner, any children, whatever, that doesn't mean that they need to lose who they are just because they have that different role.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we do that to ourselves unintentionally, and it doesn't have anything to do with our mate, our spouse, anybody. You know, it doesn't. They're not doing it. They're not causing it to happen to us. It's just something we do to ourselves until we realize it. And when he brought that to my attention, I'm very grateful for him doing that, so that I could do this now.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually with these struggles that we have, there's a bottom out moment, like
Yeah.
a low of the low. So I'm
Yes.
just wondering, what was your bottom out like?
My
Oh
bottom
my
out.
gosh, this is rough, folks.
Okay. So I decided in my business that I wanted to start a membership. And it was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months into the pandemic. And so I decided to take everything that I had learned about um, Instagram and Facebook and this and that, and um, put all of my energy into it. And I did. And when I did, it resulted in zero sales. And that moment was the moment that I just laid down and cried and just was done with the fact that I had just spent all of this time and this energy, and then no one wanted the thing that I had created. And I also realized that I had created it from a space of myself rather than a space of giving. And so I needed to flip that and figure out where in myself was I missing in order
Mhm.
to be able to give better to my audience. And but that was definitely the low. I mean, I think I cried for days uh, about that. It was a very, very hard time in my career. So, but things are working so much better right now than they were before because of that moment. And it took me a few months to pick myself back up and it wasn't that I didn't have income from my business. I was still supporting us, but I wanted to do something new and different, but it was coming from the wrong place, and it I totally hit rock bottom on that one.
Yeah. And so many entrepreneurs, I know for myself, when I first started my self-defense business on Maui,
Mhm.
I had a lot of success in Washington State. So I'm like, oh, I'll just do it again. It'll be just fine. If I build it, they will come.
Right.
And nobody came. I
Wow.
was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. I've set up flyers, I've done all these things, nobody's coming. And then I had to take, like you said, a really hard look at like who am I marketing to? Who is this for? This worked for
Mhm.
Washington because I'm marketing towards people with that demographic. I need to be
Right.
marketing towards the Hawaii demographic, which is completely different.
Hmm.
So it was sort of like, sort of about me, sort of about the environment that I had been in that works so well.
Yep.
But it's all learning, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you could have done anything different, what would that have been?
I think I think I would have started later. I think I would have enjoyed the moment and the time that pandemic had given at the very beginning, um, to do something creative rather than be in my business because the business wasn't going anywhere. Like I think I would have started maybe the podcast would have started earlier. Like maybe it would have come from a different place. Maybe it would have been a different theme to the podcast altogether. But I think I would have started something creative earlier rather than have something that was creative that were the end goal was to make money. I think that was what would be different.
I think that, yeah, when you are so focused on the money, you miss out on the journey, you miss out on
Yep.
the human connection that's so important.
Yep.
Um, so, what would be one piece of advice if you could just give it to your younger self? Because I hear all of these things that happened as you got older and the aha moments and everything.
Hmm.
What would you say to your younger self if you could?
Yeah. To like 18-year-old me.
Whatever age you want. Maybe it's the girl who ran and started crying because she's not perfect. It's whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there is no such thing as perfection, and striving for excellence rather than perfection means that you will be the best at who you are, and it doesn't matter what other people think about you at the moment, and that doing things that are connected to money, you still have to have a real deep-seated passion for it, and then the money will come.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Um, so how can people find your podcast?
So my podcast is currently on Spotify and Apple Podcasts,
Okay.
and you can just type in "Calming Confectionery," and the subtitle to it is "Decompressing Through Hobbies." So that's the point, is when you all of these things that I talk about with perfectionism and being type A and wanting everything to be perfect and not delegating and all of that, it really stems back to not taking the time to be creative and realize that being creative and having a hobby is you're going to be bad at it at first. It's like you're going to be bad at your hobby at first, and that helps you to learn that being excellent at something does take time, and it's okay to hone that skill and then move on to the next one without feeling guilty or feeling bad about yourself for being bad at it at first.
Yeah. So yes, I mean that leads into what my other question was do you have any advice for my audience with those
Yeah.
problems or those struggles?
Yeah, yeah, because mentally, as women, for whatever reason, we just think that everything has to be exactly the right way the first time. It's just kind of how society has built our lives. And yeah, it's true. You have to realize that you are good at something, but maybe you're not good at it right now, and that's okay. You can be good at it in a year, but if you don't start now doing it, you'll never be good.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Um, so how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah. So my Instagram is also Calming Confectionery, and you can send me a direct message on there. I am the only one that has access to that Instagram, so you will be talking directly to me. And I would love to chat with you. My email is also calmingconfectionery@gmail.com, and we'll chat.
That's great. Janina, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Aloha, everyone.